2:01 p.m. Yes, it's Johnny Eyespy, folks, and I'm so sorry. The video that I posted just recently only got a few views anyway. Yeah, and I made a major league mistake, and I was having that ginger beer. I was having that ginger beer well after midnight while I was looking at material for the very first time. You know, most of my podcasts are completely off the cuff and not rehearsed, just right off the top of my head. Right? I'm just like anybody else. I've been in live events, and when I do get to rehearse and when I do know my lines, I am perfect. That's why I got honors in drama. It's one of my things I could not control. Right? What is that thing? Uh, I I was like runner up for the lead in Oliver, and my dad didn't. My dad just didn't want to hear me rehearsing. Right? A month of rehearsing Oliver in the house. Oliver. Oliver Twist. I still got to paint the backdrop. But let's get on with it, folks. It's 2:02 now. I want to go over these charts I have for you. As I said, most of my insights come to me in a flash, but I'm sharing the astrology I'm sharing with you today. I know there's a lot of astrologers on YouTube. There's lots of them. I keep on getting recommended astrologers here and there and everywhere, and some astrologers are scrolling things down on YouTube and going to other platforms. Other astrologers are trying to ramp things up. And what I can say about this is being a lifelong astrologer in Canada. I picked up an astrology book to figure out why I was getting deported when I was getting deported. Everything was going right, and then I moved into a country that wanted me but didn't really want me, right? I mean, if you're running a photo service and you see this ember just burning with passion, wanting to, climb the stairs, climb that ladder, wanting to pioneer into photography, and that individual just didn't even come close to having the same energy as I had. I mean, I had to work 3 jobs to have my photography business just because of my photography gig up at Lake Louise as a subcontract. I had to have that. I had to work so many jobs, right? And coming from nothing, right? And why was I coming from nothing? Because I was getting deported out of the country where my family lived, which is the United States. And I was drawn home. I mean, it was no choice to me. I knew exactly where I belong. And I do belong here. That's why I'm here, right? I'm having some really sensational Japanese green tea today. And I'm going to stop doing these podcasts. Last night I didn't even review the podcast, and for some reason I did not delete the last chart of the podcast, and I went to go look through it, and I'm saying, oh my lord, I can't believe this. I like doing the podcast, right? I get excited with it, and when there's a lot of charts that link up and they're perfect like this, it gets you excited. And if you are a little bit under that wave of euphoria, having a little ginger beer at 1 a.m. in the morning while you're doing your podcast. I went to school for broadcasting. I mean, I went to do all this stuff. I want to get back into the practice of what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing this, right? I've been off the tracks simply because of a work and living environment situation. And I know how Canadian artists are in Canada. I know how they are. I know the struggles that they have because I've been here all my life. And as a child, growing up in the United States, I didn't have any struggle whatsoever with the artwork. Leading up to working for the late great Rudy Garcia in Philadelphia, I didn't have any problems with any of this. The biggest problem was I had to juggle jobs, and when you have to juggle jobs, things get watered down and they're not as brilliant as when you were in high school and you juggled your courses, but you weren't juggling as much as you had to juggle, right? I mean, your parents do a considerable amount of work while you're in high school, right? And that's my earning. I mean, to get back to, I mean, I remember everyone knows. I mean, I was the lead artist exiting high school. I mean, I won the grand mural. I mean, every year, all the students would get together and they do this whole entire mural project, intramural project, and you get a month or so to work on the painting, right? And then not to have that kind of time ever again, because you're doing everything under the dime, right? We all know that freelancers are the starving artists of our society, the freelancers, and I want to own my work, right? This is my biggest problem. If anyone, I'm stubborn about this. I want to own my platform, right? That's why if I'm going to share anything, I know what producers get paid on YouTube. I know how many views you have to get in order to get a payment, right? I'm not here for the money, right? This is my social thing. Um, I am absolutely not here on YouTube for any money. I pay for the premium. I I know how many views you have to get. I am not going to share astrology on YouTube for a source of income. It is not my goal. Okay? My goal on YouTube before I start this podcast of George Washington, my goal on YouTube is to give an entire layout of astrology so anyone can pick it up and learn, okay? And to realize it's not of the occult or anything like this. Our modern religions are all based on the stars, but they have wiped all this information out, and I'm going to reinstall it so it's what? It's common sense, right? It's part of that common sense gene. I mean, this kind of information should be there in the school systems. I shouldn't be going from one pastor to the next pastor to the next pastor from all these different churches to ask, why do I have this compulsion to be an artist and not a metal worker or a construction worker building buildings or being why do I want to be the artist? Because you go to all these pastors and all these churches and they say, just talk to God about it. I can't tell you this. Because my dad, my dad frowned on being an artist. He said, go ahead and be another starving artist, right? And in all honesty, if officials, and this is what happens to anyone. Look at all the business owners in Ukraine. Look at all the artists in Ukraine. All their lives have been disrupted because of this war. That's why I'm here talking to you the way I am right now, and it's the reason why I'm doing the particular line of work I'm doing right now, because I did not necessarily pick the fight that I was having with my employer when I came back from university, right? I didn't bring my notebooks. I didn't even have any photography notes. I just had, when I was there shooting, right? And he wouldn't share anything. He wasn't interested in anyone leveling up. It's like this lure, come and work for me. You get free skiing. But the thing is, you still have to pay the rent because you're not making enough money there. And you know how Banff is. Banff is a resort town where you have to work 3 jobs so you can live in a closet, right? My bachelor's suite that I'm living in right now is probably the size of my dad's walk-in closet. I haven't seen my dad's walk-in closet lately. And I haven't, since coming back to Canada, I've only had maybe 2 or 3 holiday celebrations with friends I would take on as family. I think the last time I celebrated Christmas with anyone that was considered family was with my buddy in Golden, BC in 2011. He invited me over. That's the last time I've had and then there was 1 or 2 other times where I actually cooked the turkey dinner, and I actually took great liking to what I was able to do for people, because I know how to marinate a turkey. I know how to marinate a turkey in a wait Zinfandel. I can tell you how to do it. Look, guys, let's get on with the astrology. I am so sorry for those who had wasted their time last night. I mean, it was a good. The podcast is okay. I was filled with giggles because I had the ginger beer, and I was just so excited that I saw these charts and how I was so mesmerized in how they linked up. And the last chart I saw last hand, I was going through the timeline, and I said, well, I can't really make people sit here and listen to me for like 15 charts. But okay, let's get on with this, okay? And I want you to know this is my platform on astrology. For I will cover trends if I see general trends. I will not go through the signs. I will not do this. I will not waste hard drive state. I will not waste hard drive space on YouTube on forecasting weekly or monthly events within one podcast. I mean, I won't be doing this. There's too many people that want to go through the signs to do this, and what I find in the problem is they make the videos, and the videos sit on the hard drive, and that time period, those views will only be limited to that particular time period, and then they won't get, and it's just wasting space on the hard drives, right? I'm not interested in wasting space on my hard drives. I'm not interested in wasting space on YouTube's hard drives. I understand it's a business that they run, an advertising business. Propaganda, right? And my propaganda is all factual. I'm going to back everything up. I'm just beginning this platform. I mean, this is where it is, and I am very sincere. I've spent too much time with this, and I do not feel that an individual should have to give up his line of work just to be a saint, right? To be a priest. I don't feel this way. I don't feel like I mean, because photography is very simple, right? And photography is only one part of what I do. I mean, I am interested in filmmaking. I'm interested in all of this. I'm interested in all the things I do very much. I'm interested in being a muralist. I know that I could do all of these things. I know how my mentor was. He would work for years without taking a vacation, and then he would go on vacation and then come back a month early from a vacation because he was bored. And that's how I am. I mean, I have the things that I want to do in my head. They're constantly there. I'm so far behind because of the COVID and everything. But at the same time, exactly where the Father wants me to be, right? I want to share my clairvoyancy, but at the same time, I want to show you that I'm a successful artist. I want to show you that basically I'm happiest when I'm doing the work I've been trained to do, and I was voted to be the best at, right? And I think being the lifelong artist and having that avant-garde mind is what makes me the astrologer I am, and where I can see the events happening, and I can recognize the planets or the stars, you know. So here we go. Let's talk about Georgetown. Let's talk about George Washington. We'll go to the history books here. You know, this website right here, you know, reference desk. Okay, this is my reference desk. And it was just placed inside me. I've been looking at Washington, D.C. And let's start off with the first chart we have here. I'm going to key it off here. May 15th, 1751, okay? This is when the Maryland Assembly appoints commissioners to lay a town on the Potomac River where these Native Americans first lived for like 6,000 years. I think that's what it was, 4,000 years. The Native Americans that were there, they had settled there for 4,000 years. They were hanging out there. They loved the area for 4,000 years, despite the rain. I'm not on the East Coast anymore. Anyone, everyone. I'm not on the East Coast anymore. I could have a job. I could have a job with an individual I went to university with, right there in New York. I could be there right now. But why am I not doing that? Why am I living in a town that doesn't really care about my art, even though I can shine? We're gonna have good art, believe me. We're gonna bring it all about. I have it in my head, and I have no other choice. There's bills have to be paid, and I cannot work just one job like I have been. I have to work right around the clock. This town is ruthless this way. And if I was on a farm, I'd be working right around the clock anyway. I'm a farmer, okay? Okay, so Georgetown, May 15th. This is when they decide on the location, on the base location of Washington, D.C. All these charts actually line right up with George's chart. Here's George's chart right here. And when I go through this, I'm going to show you the trends, because we're at 1751. It's X amount of years before 1767, right? When the Declaration of Independence. They were already working on this. Okay? So 67, 51, you could do the math. It's 9 years, right? Not 9 years, but 7 years? Yes, 6 years. That's not right. Sorry, my fault. 1751, 1776. You could do the math. 6, 5, and then 1. 15 years? 15 years, okay? George Washington was born in 1732. They were working on this. And he's born in 1732 in Virginia, right? It's born this time. It's amazing, right? So here we go. He's born at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He's got Taurus on the ascendant, okay, which is, when we go through the chart, we have to look at the moon. So he's got an earthy moon, a feminine moon, and then he's a water individual, right? Water and earth. And then he's got a Venus on the ascendant, but this decant of Taurus, the Taurus ascendant, Taurus, Virgo. So that's the Mercurian, right? That's the Mercurian operation of the Taurus. I don't know the Sabian symbol. I didn't go that deep on this. I want to show you the planets. There's enough astrologers. I do not want to overlap anything I see on. The reason why I am putting this channel together as it is, and I will get this even more modified. I just want to do this chart podcast really quick here, but eventually I'm going to make it so the videos are very direct to the point. Everything's been pre-organized. I want it to be a very quick learn for everyone here. I want you to be able to move through my videos simply with baby steps as a first grader, and to be able to be a master astrologer, in just a few weeks, right? This is and then to go through every week. This is my format. This is what I feel I should do. This is Tuesday, and within the week I will have this all organized. I'm working on a green screen and everything like this. It all takes time to set up, especially when your personal time is very limited, right? I live in a socialist country, and it wasn't in my game plan to come back from if you live in the United States and then to come to Canada and you don't know what Canada is like, you really didn't have a relationship with your father and have these talks to your father about why he actually left Canada. I know why a lot of artists leave Canada, right? And as I said before, right now, in my own personal observation, Canada is just a larger and quieter state for other um, corporations, states, incorporated states. I know it's called, excuse me, I know it's called the Dominion of Canada, right? It's not a country. And it's a young place. I mean, I'm the individual that knows the history of the Stuarts. I know the history of Stuarts, and I know how many hundreds of years went by before England and Scotland finally shook hands and became Great Britain just because someone passed away, right? And they didn't have any children. Poor Elizabeth Tudor. I mean, but right now, I'm looking at being a Stuart and having my family and knowing that my family was entangled with the Stuarts that actually created Great Britain, and to know the dreams of King James VI, to have these dreams, right? To know these things and to see where Canada is now after 150 years, 156 years, to see where Canada is now, and to know she's in the same place we as Scots were before Great Britain became Great Britain, right? Both Scotland was fighting for its independence, and Scotland was also fighting for its individuality, right? Its identity. So let's look at this. Look how these are. First off, for Georgetown at high noon, and we have to look how the midhaven here and how the sun is at 24 degrees Taurus, and then Jupiter would be at 19 degrees Taurus, which would be conjunct George Washington's ascendant. Okay, to do this proper, I have no ginger beer in me, and I'm totally sober, and it's not late at night, and I want to really pull out the strong points of these charts and to show you this. Because the degrees of Georgetown, these 22 degree marks, and to see where Capricorn is here, how the moon in Capricorn, because where is the moon in Capricorn? At 16 degrees, which would be Capricorn, the moon in Capricorn would be trine the ascendant for George Washington, which he was, ascendant of Taurus at 18 degrees, right? But then we have to look at how the moon would, his natal moon, and how Jupiter at 19 degrees would be trine his natal moon in the house of higher learning in Capricorn, right? Ninth house, higher learning, with the Capricorn overlap. And remember, the moon is that Cancer thing, so the moon is in its partner sign of Capricorn, right? As we know, and here we're looking at George's chart. He has Jupiter and Pluto sitting in Libra, right? Sitting in Libra, sign of the scales. This this one, once again, this reforming planet, right? And then Jupiter is the arrow of information. Okay, so and now we're looking at Neptune in the first house as well. So we got Neptune and Gemini coming up here, and look at the Grand Trine here as well. I mean, look at this. But the other thing I like to see is Saturn in that house of the 12th house, right? The 12th house, Saturn's on the cusp of that 12th house. 12th house is at 2 degrees 29 minutes Aries, and Saturn is at 2 degrees 41 minutes Aries. So and as I said in my last podcast, the reason why I'm here talking to you today on this platform is because George Washington, Saturn is the platform of my intelligence, because I have a sun at 2 degrees 34 minutes Leo, alright? So here's Saturn, the platform of his life, his monument, is there, giving, the platform, giving the premise of my message to you today, alright? So here we go. We move forward here on this day. You can see how the charts line up, right? We can see how the ascendant, it's in that house, that decant of Mercury for Taurus, and we can see how Gemini is at home, or I should say Mercury is at home in Gemini, um, along with the node in Gemini. And when we look at that Gemini place in his chart, we have to look at that first and second house, right? The second house would be 15 degrees. So what is the likelihood, right? What is the likelihood? I mean, because look at Georgetown's Mercury. Georgetown's Mercury is at 45 degrees, right? 15 degrees, 45 minutes, excuse me, please. And then we have the ascendant here at 15 degrees, 48 minutes, okay? There you go. I mean, the second house. I mean, that's where Mercury is. I mean, and he's got a co-ruler there with that Mercury. He's in that Mercury decant, which is moving into Libra, which would be that, the next decant would be that Libra in, not Libra, my fault, that Capricorn, that Saturn. So we got Venus and then Mercury for the different decants, where that we have the Venus and then Mercury and then that Saturn decant of that Taurus sign on that horizon, on that. Okay. We have to look at that part, right? We have to recognize it. Now let's move to the next chart. The next chart is E80, okay? The next step was to in February 27th, okay? Very important date because George was born on the 22nd, right? So he has an 8 degrees. He has a Pisces sun at 3 degrees. And then we have to think about where Saturn is right now. Saturn is actually moving over George's sun right now. It's a very important time. We are in a very timely place for the U.S., right? Everything that George stood for, everything that Washington, D.C. stands for, is under attack right now, right? Because Saturn is sitting on top of his sun right now, right? Saturn is sitting right on top of his sun right now, even though he's still here with spirit. He's still here in the spirit, as Washington, D.C. still stands as a democracy. Okay? So when we look at here, and that's what we got to look at the sickle, right? Because Capricorn, Saturn is opposed Cancer, right? Saturn is opposed Cancer, as a ruler of Capricorn, and Cancer is ruled by the moon, right? And you can see how the moon is there. You can see how he was not born on a full moon, and the moon was actually sitting there waning. It's actually waning there, getting ready for that new moon. So when we look at the charts here, and we look at the date, and we see what's happening here, because when we look at September 17th, 1787, when we look at that, making our corrections from yesterday's podcast, holy cow. When we look at the charts here, Jupiter is actually squared his natal sun, right? What happened here? Yeah, Jupiter is actually squared his natal sun, okay, Gemini, but that Jupiter is actually conjunct my ascendant, right? And then look at the ascendant itself for that. But this is at noon, okay? But so we're just looking at the planets and the connection of the planets. And remember, Pisces, back in the day when he was born, and even at 1752, when you look at this, Uranus wasn't discovered yet, and Jupiter and Neptune wasn't discovered either. So Jupiter co-ruled Pisces back then, right? And it still co-rules Pisces. In these podcasts I have coming to you, I have an abundance of information that the other astrologers on YouTube are not. That's the reason why. I mean, my own personal frustration with the shows like I have dropped in on, and there's only been there's only been a few astrologers I've been listening to for, I would say, over 3 months. Actually, when I started being recommended astrologers with YouTube, it was when I was getting information and, when I was basically looking for a chart casting system outside of astro.com, which I still like both. As I said before, I still like both these chart casting systems and both these companies. I have my database in astro.com is so huge. I probably won't stop paying for that data bank. Um, you know, I won't stop paying for it. I'll be paying for it until there's no internet, right? Because I just have too much information over there. And I'm not completely in love with the Astro Gold platform, right? But moving forward, uh, I'm going to be quite right to the point here. We have to look at many cycles here, and we have to look at how the planets are arrayed and how they connect with George's chart and seeing the trends. I do not find putting out general forecasts beneficial to anyone. I mean, and it gets frustrating listening to this stuff. I mean, the astrologers I actually have listened to, the parts of their podcast that the parts of the podcast that they were trying to shorten and refrain from doing is the so-called mundane astrology, which I really don't like the reference to mundane astrology. I think the forecasting power of right here and now is bringing the students and we're all students. My mentor was 90 years old and he still considered himself a student, right? And some astrologers won't talk to anyone. It's you know until they have several decades of studying under their belt, because you have to visually watch these cycles, these sequences of events, and these day-to-day revelations that we have with these planets. He told me precisely, don't spend too much time with smaller bodies. We know so little about Jupiter still after all these years. So, moving forward, okay? So, with this chart right here, when we look at the important parts on the 80, we have Juno conjunct George's Washington. We have the sun close to his Washington. We can see the connections and we can know what they're doing, even though these are charts that are set for 12 p.m. It's the planetary placements. We know that the moon isn't going to move very much. So it's very good to basically know that we're on track with our discovery, our greater discovery of the solar system. To understand, when we have the moon at 17 degrees Leo, it's in conjunct to the moon in George's chart, right? There's work being done. That's why the inconjunct is far more important than a lot of astrologers say it is. And I will say that with the semi-sextile too, because I find these at very close proximities, and they're doing things. Knowing that the moon in Leo is the bedroom, right? And there are plots of land for this, right? And people have to rest, sleep, restore themselves. Okay, so when we want to look at other things here, moving forward, we have to look at how he's got like a Mars in Scorpio at 23 degrees, and we want to look at the Saturn in Sagittarius. Once again, this is the important of the semi-sextile, because we have Mars is in Scorpio, semi-sextile to that Saturn, and it's exact for a reason. There's a reason why those two energies are doing what they're doing there, right? Because Mars in Scorpio, which still, I mean, this is a very big Scorpio house. When we look at Mars, he's at 23 degrees. In that sixth house, it's a very big sixth house, and they're all doing stuff in that house, right? 1788, let's make sure the time is right. June 21st, 1788, the U.S. Constitution as adopted by the Constitutional Convention. The 1788 U.S. Constitution as adopted by the Constitution Convention of September 15th, 1787, right? When we look at George's chart, once again, this is a big day for him. And this is why you should never throw out your solar astrology, right? You should never throw out the solar. Everyone's talking about how we have to look at the ascendant and how important the ascendant is in the different houses this way. But we are still in a solar trek. We do our work during the day. We have a solar life. The expansion of ourselves has to do with that sun. And with this being so, we have to look at this 10th house of this chart, right? But most importantly, you just have to look at the Cancer. Wipe out the 10th house. Don't even pay attention to this part. Think of George being a Pisces, and in his annual walk, the first house of a Pisces would be his first house, would be personality. Second house would be self-worth. Third house would be communications. Fourth house would be home front. And then the fifth house, the house of the heart, would be Cancer. So in this particular June 21st, which is actually the longest day of the year, it's actually when the sun just crests over. The sun would be trine his natal sun, okay? And then Jupiter would be conjunct his natal sun. And then Mercury would be trine his natal Mars in Scorpio. You see the water-like time? But this would be a very beneficial time as it is. I mean, this whole entire period is very, it's almost like predestined for George, right? Because he would be he'd be just heated up his heart would be just heated up like a firecracker inside, right? With this trine happening, that Cancer house being like this. And it's no wonder he was it's no wonder that he was the first president of the U.S., because we need someone like a grandfather like that Pisces, right? And look where Pisces is for this. Pisces at 10 degrees, right? You can see how that is to his chart, And what's at 10 degrees in his chart? We have an 8 degrees Jupiter. We have a 10 degrees. Look at this. I mean, we have Uranus in Sagittarius, which would be absolutely like in conjunct, It's like that in conjunction thing again with Jupiter, right? See, these in conjuncts are always coming up. You have to pay attention to them. They're far more important than a lot of these astrologers say they are, because they're always doing something, especially with a major planet like Jupiter. And here it is, in conjunct his Sun Sagittarius, and this is Jupiter, right? Uranus is in that Sagittarius house, right? Uranus is in that Sagittarius house ruled by Jupiter. So these are important points to look at continuously. There are reasons why in conjuncts happen, right, in the charts when we cast them. Now, we look at the commissioners for surveying. I had to take the gum out of my mouth. I'm sorry. Okay, so here we go. Commissioners surveying, January 22nd. Okay. George Washington appoints Thomas Johnson and Daniel Carroll of Rock Creek, representing Maryland, and Dr. David Stewart to represent Virginia as commissioners for surveying the district. Okay. That's the 22nd. So when we look at his chart again, when we look at this chart again, we have to look at this right here. This is very important while we're looking at this. I don't know why it likes to do that with the little blurb that likes to show up here. So when we look at these two charts, look at this 12th house case scenario for, as I said, that solar walk. The solar walk is very important. That's why the solar walk has to be given just as much importance than observing the trends for your natal chart. Because we look at the state, right? I mean, that solar 12th house is ruled by Neptune, right? And here he is, a sun in Pisces, which is ruled by Neptune. It's illuminating that Neptune thing. And you can see this would be like his year end. I mean, this is just the last 30 days before his birthday. That's why we can't throw out the solar charts, folks. We have to maintain that solar walk that we do around the sun each year. And you can look at all the points of interest here with his own. I mean, look how close the conjunction is at noon to his own natal ascendant. Look at that. Look how perfect that is. The Father is absolutely giving it to us here. And the other thing about this chart is that this would be 1 degree. Saturn would be moving 1 degree Aries, which would be a time of his. This would be a time of what? His Saturn return. It would be a Saturn return for George. And this is what they're surveying. They're surveying the land. It's that whole entire ordeal that goes along with it. Because here you go, that task at hand, but most importantly, because for this chart, it's a 10th house, it's a Saturn house, right? And we got Mars and Pluto, right? And Pluto is that, destruction or construction guy, right? And Mars is his partner. And look at where Mars is actually. Mars in this chart is perfectly opposed. It's only a couple minutes out. It's perfectly opposed by Jupiter in my 4th house, but Jupiter in Leo at 12 degrees is that whole higher learning station for Jupiter. Jupiter's quite happy there at 12 degrees Leo. Very happy place for Jupiter. And here's Mars in this chart in Aquarius opposing my Jupiter, and here I am gaining higher learning. Okay, so we're going to be moving forward here. I'm just showing you the charts, and this way you can look at them and have them for yourself, right? For your own personal study. As you can see, they all link up quite well. I mean, look at this. This is Neptune here is at 27 degrees Libra. Holy cow, I can't even believe it. Okay. And here's the selected site. You can see what happened during these 2 days. The sun's just moving right over. I mean, it's 2 to 4, right? Look at the Uranus here. I say Uranus is actually perfectly conjunct my natal Uranus or natal Jupiter, right? Look at this. And then most important, let's look at when we look at these two charts right here, look at the moon, okay? The moon in Virgo, that's what I wanted to show you. The moon in Virgo is perfectly opposed. What? It's an earth sign. They're surveying, right? It's that earth sign, and it's opposed his sun, right? It's absolutely perfect. Then the selected site. Look how much time is going. This is 2 days later. Okay? Selected site, 2 days later. You can see the Earth moving, right? Even though it's 12 noon, you can see how much the Earth is, the days are getting longer because it's the same time of day, and the Earth has moved 2 degrees, right? The Earth is actually lowering, on that horizon. The Earth is rolling over for that equinox thing, right? The days are absolutely becoming longer, just by a few moments. So when you look at this right here, look where the moon is. Yeah, the moon rules the domicile, right? And then here's Jupiter, the expansion. The building that you put on top of the platform, right? It's Libra. It's a Libra house, 1 degree. And Libra, that 1 degree is, you're now in a place of Libra. Both the moon and Jupiter are there together. And what do you have? You have the building that's going to go on the platform and the value of the building, right? Because this is Libra, the Venus and the Saturn, right? I want to give you guys astrology you're just not getting anywhere else, and that's why I'm putting. And it's not work for me, right? It's work when it's 1 o'clock at night, and I've had a couple drinks, and I completely mess up on the last chart because I corrected the chart, but I still put the one I still put the wrong card up there. But after having a second look, I can show you this much more with the charts, right? This much more science. Look at the 17. Look at the nodes here on City of Washington. Okay, this is selective site. What's this right here? City of Washington, December 1st, 1880. We're almost done with this. December 1st, 1800, right? 1800. The federal capital is transferred from Philadelphia to the site on the Potomac River, now called the City of Washington, in the territory of Columbia. Okay? Very simple, right? Let's look at the chart. Let's see how perfect it is, because it's absolutely another perfect chart for the moment. We have the inconjunct. Jupiter's in conjunct with Washington's Sun. Once again, the inconjunct is far more important than astrologers give it credit for, because it's always there doing its work, right? The inconjunct is work. That's why the 6th house will always be the 6th house. It's all about work and service. So here we are. Saturn is at 24 degrees Leo for this date. And we look at these. There's the semi-sextile, right? Here's a semi-sextile through his Mars, or not semi-sextile, but here Saturn is making a square. The premise is, the platform, the structure, Saturn, the long drawn out career of it, right? Here he is in Leo. And when we look at this, I can't help to forget, but remember in this past summer of 2023, remember where Venus was retrograding over the U.S.'s, the City of Washington's Saturn, right? Now take a look at this, okay? This is very important because Jupiter is a very important player here. First off, Jupiter is conjunct my natal sun, right? So it's definitely happening. Let's go back here. I don't know why it likes to do that. But here we are. Aquarius is on the ascendant. And look at Pluto. Something I didn't say yesterday, which I was actually, when I go back over my podcast, sometimes I'm upset about not making important notations. So it's one of the reasons why I did delete the other chart. 80% of the chart, 80% of the podcast was right on the ball, right? So when we move forward here, and we look at this Pluto, because I didn't bring the importance of this Pluto here. Pluto's on the ascendant, okay, for this chart. It's at 2 degrees Pisces, and why is that important to us? Because that's that reforming planet, that's that construction or destruction planet. And here it is, making a once-in-a-lifetime conjunction. It's a once-in-a-lifetime conjunction. And sometimes it will never happen. Many people will never see a Pluto conjunct their natal sun in their lifetime. It's because how long it takes for Pluto to return. It's like 240 odd years, right? So here we go. For this time, George Washington was definitely of the divine, okay? He was definitely of the divine. And I say this is because for the City of Washington, what is the likelihood of Pluto being conjunct his natal sun, right? Very important. Extremely. And Saturn's being perfectly square, or Saturn is being perfectly squared his natal Mars for the date. Craziness, right? And then, but yeah, we can just go through it. He's got a moon at 13 degrees And this once again, this is another reason why we can never forget how important these semi-sextiles are. I'm gonna beat it into my head that despite what they say, semi-sextiles are important, just like the inconjuncts. And the reason why I say this is because for the U.S. is July 4th. Birthday for the U.S. is July 4th, 1967, and the sign is at 13 degrees Cancer. So here we are, the moon coming up on Juno. One on relationships, but when you look at this moon, it's semi-sextile to the U.S.'s sun, right? It's semi-sextile. It's that 12th house experience. And then when we look at the Taurus, when we look at the Mars and Taurus for this date, that's going to be what? That's going to be like in conjunct. The Mars is going to be in conjunct with the Uranus of George Washington, right? And then let's look at the node. He's got a node at 17 degrees Aries. And look where Pluto is. Pluto is at 17 degrees Libra. Look at that nodes of fate. Most importantly, nodes of fate. City of Washington. And where is the nodes of fate now? All right, it's coming up on it. It's so important, this date, right? So important. Because the south tail of the nodes of fate, the Ketu, the Rahu and Ketu, the Ketu is going to go over that. We'll look at the time of that later. We're going to be watching this. That's why it's very important to look at this chart. That's why I had to redo this podcast. No giggles now because no gingerbread, no ginger beer happening in me. Sorry, I got this Mercury square Saturn thing, and the only way for me to improve my talk, my voice, my verbal delivery is to talk every day. Right? I've been in sales. I was in sales for, I've been in sales for all my life since age 15. Right? So I know when I know my material, there is less ums and there's less stuttering. Right? And when I'm doing it every day, when I'm sitting silent every day, when I'm not able to have regular conversations, because my work right now, I have no regular conversations. Okay, so here we go here. Constitution Convention. Sorry, the charts are out of order. Constitution Convention, right? This is 1787. Yeah. Constitution is signed by the members of the Constitution Convention. Okay, when we look at this here, once again, when bringing this up, look at the Virgo. The Virgo's going to be opposed opposed Washington's 11th house. Right here's the sun. This is where these Virgo planets are. And that's the partnership house. Virgo is the partnership house of Libra. So we have to look at that. Once again, we have to look at the 17 degree mark of Neptune. Neptune at Libra. And that's going to be conjunct. What's the likelihood, right? There's that Pluto guy. Neptune and Pluto. Very important. In 1787, I'm not even sure if Neptune was discovered yet then. But look at this. It's very important. The mean node for Washington is 25 degrees Sagittarius, right? And look at Jupiter. It's very important in these charts. These are things I didn't bring out last night. I'm so sorry. That's why we're doing it over. 25 degrees is Jupiter. Conjunct that mean node of Washington, right? Oh, it's opposed that mean node. Excuse me, please. All right, looking good, right? And look here, the Chiron for this date is at 13 degrees. Once again, we cannot underestimate the importance of these semi-sextiles, because the Chiron would be semi-sextile to the U.S.'s sun at 13 degrees Cancer. Okay. Now for the last chart of the night, or the day, I should say, the last chart of today, we should look at this black males, right? And this was completely wrong from before. I had not changed the date here. I had two charts, and I accidentally uploaded it. It was late, and I had a couple of ginger beers on me. So here we go. January 8th, 1867. Very important date. And this is this chart would be like 7 months, 6, 7 months after Canada became a country, a dominion. The Dominion of Canada was formed, 1867. January 8th was absolutely yesterday, right? And here I'm doing this information. It's the reason why I was as ecstatic as I was last night, is to see that January 8th, here I am, January 8th, I'm looking at the date that we are in right now of Capricorn, and we are looking at this date is when it's structure, right? January is structure, and look at the date, look at the charts here. Let's line this up with George's chart once again. Um, Here's the moon and Jupiter in the 12th house. Here, look where Mercury is for this chart, right? For George, the Mercury is at 6 degrees, right? That's where it is, Aquarius. And you look at Jupiter here. Jupiter is at 8 degrees, Aquarius. Very close. Hanging out, talking to each other, right? They've been talking to each other for a couple of days now. Now this is the culmination of it, right? And then we have, and these are that solar 12th house. That's why we look at the natal chart, but we cannot forget how important these solar houses are and this solar truck is. All right, we cannot lose that sight. So when we look at what else is to be observed, when we look at what else is to be observed, look at 18 degrees mark. So we have Pisces. We got Chiron at Pisces, 18 degrees. And as I said, this is important. These are important positions just because of what? Of George being a Pisces. Very important chart. And then look at the Neptune in Aries. Neptune in Aries at 10 degrees. That's going to be doing what? Neptune in Aries at 10 degrees is going to be trine Uranus, right? Which is the house of humanity. It's going to be the planet of change, right? Brotherly love. Uranus, Aquarius, right? Look at this. And then look at the Neptune placement as well. His Neptune placement is in Gemini, so that would be semi-sextile, or that would be sextile, with that Neptune crossing right there. Then for the Scorpio time, you look at the Scorpio house, right? George doesn't have very much there in Scorpio, except for that Mars, right? And he's got that Mars in Scorpio at 23 degrees, and just so happens there is Saturn, right? Saturn in Scorpio. So the lineups are absolutely there. And look at Venus. Venus is at 12 degrees, and his natal Uranus is at 10 degrees. So there's a full-on conjunction happening here. And then we can't forget how important Mercury is as well. 28 degrees Mercury at Sagittarius, which would be trine Chiron at 29 degrees. This is Chiron, right? So this is definitely a man that was supposed to do what he's doing, right? Very important charts. Very important charts to look at, folks. And we will have this very interesting time here. Remember where the nodes of fate are happening right now. Look at this. Just got to look at this Libra house. This Libra house, the nodes of fate are moving through this way. It's going to be a very interesting time for this point because of this nodes of fate, right? And as I said, this George's Pluto, 17 degrees. Right? So crazy. I think the nodes have already passed that. Do you want to? We could always go back. Can we go back? I don't think I can go back here. There's no go back here on this one. I can't go back and do a transit for right now. But this Pluto in Taurus, though, this Pluto in Taurus, very important degree as well, and it's retrograde because it's that solar. Once again, that's why the solar house is very important. Pluto in Taurus at 13 degrees is sextile, right? It's in that 11th house of community for the U.S., being a sun of 13 degrees Cancer. So I want to teach you trends a different way. I want these chart systems. I don't want to put together a bunch of general trends for the signs with full houses, because they're not gonna. It's the reason I'm delivering this to you right now is because these these other astrologers. I mean, people are listening and what have you, and they have people following them, but the general trends are completely wrong, right? Unless you look at the individual. That's why I'm giving you this, and that's why I'm going to keep this up. I'm going to get everything organized. I'm going to be easily found. I'm working on my websites and stuff like this right now. The websites are already up. I just have to formulate this and put it together. Once I have where I'm at, almost at right now, I have a bunch of stuff on my slate. But once I have my process put together, there'll be less of these mistakes. They're rookie mistakes that I have, and especially it's at night. You're there, you're trying to relax. You still got to do this. It's still in your heart, right? And haste makes waste, but at the same time, when going back over the charts, I'm able to share with you so much more insightful information, right? Look at this Mars in Cancer for this date. Mars in Cancer is 22 degrees. See, Mars in Cancer 22 degrees. And when you look up at this, that would be, Mars would be trine his natal Mars, right? There's all these little things that move there. The charts are too perfect, right? And then all the charts always, once again, all the charts always line up to my own personal chart. Especially when you have things like, look at this. Look at the series, right? Look at Saturn. I mean, the Saturn here is 21 degrees Scorpio. My Neptune is at 21 degrees Scorpio in the 6th house, right? It's always like this. As I said before, Jupiter and the Moon are both opposed my natal Jupiter, right? I mean, there's the lineups are always there. Look, it's Venus is actually perfectly aligned my natal Jupiter, right? And it's always like this. I mean, these are benefics. But look, folks, this is my Tuesday Ruled by Mars podcast, and here I'm coming to you with a gentleman, a president with an exalted Venus and a dominant Mars, on this Tuesday. All the best to you, and less mix-ups in the days to come, because practice absolutely makes perfect. All the best. Cheers.